What up, Naughty Steppers? It's Connor Whitmore here again with another review for you on the Nawtystep channel. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the sophomore album from Xilent, released on monstercat, We Are Dust. This is the second full-length LP from Eryk Kowalczyk, aka Xilent. By this point, one of bass music's veterans, having been releasing under labels for over a decade now. Predominantly audio porn and Never Say Die, releasing a multitude of singles and EPs. And of course his debut album, We Are Virtual, which wowed many across the EDM scene. A mesmeric, off-the-wall experience that covered a huge wealth of genres across the 15 tracks. Definitely solidifying him as one of the most unique bass musicians, considering when he started and who he's influenced in that time. But moving on from We Are Virtual, almost exactly 4 years to the day, we have We Are Dust. Important thing to note here being that this is his first substantial monstercat project, having previously released just one single for them beforehand to my knowledge, alongside Razahel. So I was interested as to how much of a change in his style we would see under a different label for his second LP. And the answer to that is that I feel there are pretty substantial changes from one album to the other. Where We Are Virtual covers way more styles and isn't extremely refined sonically, We Are Dust is almost the exact opposite in that it has not as much variety, but the sound overall is significantly cleaner. Not to say that this album doesn't have its fair share of different forms of bass music beyond the dubstep that makes up most of it. This happens mostly in the second half of We Are Dust, as we get a real mishmash of styles towards its close. Track 7, Human Error, has a real hardstyle whiff to it without ever fully breaking into that approach. Following that, on Discarded, you have the electronic guitar opening with bits of rapid house and Mumba in there. Then there's the shiny, thumping mid-tempo of Only Now, the beautiful future garage of To Dust, elements of trance in Particles, and then reverting back to the first half where most of the dubstep is. Even that is incredibly varied, ranging from the monstrous to the euphoric, outright melodic dubstep through glitchier stuff and a healthy dose of RIDDIM. So you could see the album as two halves, you know, first the dubstep, then all the different genres. But really, it's experimental throughout, and that extends to the wealth of sounds and effects on show. This album isn't squeaky clean, and I wouldn't say there are loads of moments that make me truly jump out of my skin, but I feel there's more than enough sonically to keep you fully engaged from start to finish. Listening to this album is like being a voyager in this futuristic world that Xilent is trying to create. Encountering wildly different environments with each new track, every collection of sounds opening a fresh pathway in your brain. The opener from Dust sets the tone with a grand, patiently constructed, intergalactic 2-minute sequence, telling us that we are all merely particles before introducing the first glitchy seizure moment to really remind us of who we're listening to. That glitchy aspect being something you hear again most strongly in the following two tracks. In You Rise, we get these really nice interjecting screeches that get right under your skin and shoot right out again. And following that, we have Blue Shadows, the foundation of which are these very metallic, colourful, glitchy trap sections. Drops that completely grab your attention through the sheer vibrancy and brightness of them, each one progressing really well. And on that note, another similarity between these two tunes is that they both have sensational progressions to every drop. Another example of Xilent pushing boundaries with his creation by taking us down wilder, crazier avenues. The height of glitch on the album, however, probably arrives on the opening of Code Blood. I love the lyrics here as well.
Let it run through your blood, stream through your veins, beat to your soul.
Elsewhere though, there are a multitude of other moments that really bring this LP to life. The dubstep in The Darkness is particularly euphoric, not perfect on the execution but very chill-inducing, launching me right back to 2013-14 era dubstep. On the other end of the dubstep spectrum, you have Code Blood, the drops in which are full-on flavoursome and purposeful RIDDIM. Really enjoying the stuttered approach here. In the interlude, the shimmering sections either side of the blistering drop completely envelop you and sparkle their way through. Track 9, Only Now, touches you like no other here, very solemn and reflective in its opening section, with hints of virtual self, with also arguably the most epic build on the entire album, aided of course by the vocal telling us that there is both no past and no future.
There is no past. There is no future. Only now. Only now.
Pure chills. To Dust is stunning for the way that it constantly throbs and pulsates, going in and out of focus, very ethereal, stopping time as We Are Dust draws to a close. And Particles I like most for its introduction. It's blinding, but it's also full of feeling and animation. The final drop on the album is also quite glorious. Regal almost. I've picked out just a few moments here, but honestly I could go on for a while. There's a lot going on pretty much all the time. The extensive outros in tracks like You Rise and Code Blood also give We Are Dust a proper album feel, giving the impression of the dust settling after each of these tunes, tying back into the overarching theme very well. There are also a couple of blissful transitions from the end of one track to the start of another, notably from Only Now into To Dust, embellishing the idea that the whole album is a story. But in saying all of this good stuff, We Are Dust is not without its drawbacks across the 42-minute runtime. I've mentioned how there is a lot going on pretty much all the time, but sometimes I feel even more is needed for the music to truly take you off your seat. Some of the dubstep in You Rise, for example, I find slightly laboured. The progressions in The Darkness seem withdrawn and stifled. Yeah, it's just a bit too stop-start for me. Whilst I appreciate the flavour of the stuttered RIDDIM in Code Blood, I don't feel there's enough to truly blow me away, and it becomes less impactful as it goes on. And on the topic of stuttered delivery, I find the 1788L-esque drops in Only Now difficult to appreciate. The force is on point, but the ideas are lacking for me. Human Error and Discarded also have equal amounts of drop moments that do work, and others that fall flat in their execution. There are also a couple of standout moments that I would have to say leave more of an off taste than a good one. I love the intro to Particles, so taking it down that dystopian route for the build almost ruins it for me, and the drop that follows is quirky and cool, but not refined. See, like, it's a cheeky idea, but I just don't get anything from it. And on Interluden, as I alluded to earlier, we have this blistering middle section that I'm still not quite sure what to make of. I enjoy the unexpected nature of it, it's pretty full on and there's lots to take in, but it does seem a little ahead of itself, like it's malfunctioning, just putting in sounds where he can. The layering and bringing together of sounds on this album is fantastic and plain for everyone to see, just sometimes it needs more feeling and emotion behind it. A kind of musical glue that just stitches everything together with a bit more warmth or darkness to it, whatever the mood of the track in question. There's also a fair bit of jarring, offbeat stuff here, something which I let slide because it builds on the whole glitchy aspect of his style. But it isn't easy to get into, it's very artistic and finely crafted, but I also want to be able to dance and groove to it, you know. Overall though, I do feel like I get a fair bit more good out of listening to We Are Dust than I do bad. I think it's also an LP that will reveal more and more as I listen to it again and again, maybe not on a level of feeling, but definitely sonically. The execution doesn't always get you going, but the adventure, daring and playfulness of it throughout is pretty infectious. There are moments I want to go back to in basically every track here, stuff I'm sure I will never enjoy also, but that's inevitable over the course of an album, right? I love the whole aesthetic he's got going on. He really transports you to that virtual world. The track titles also play a big part in that. There's a good balance between having one main approach and enough experimentation on offer, without many songs taking me aback entirely, but the general sonic quality of it makes me want to listen multiple times more, which is ultimately what we appreciate his music for. It's not so much the ideas, but the sounds that transport you to this world. He could have honed in on the sense of the epic much more, and structurally there's a lot of similar sounding stuff, and on that note, I'd say I find it more good than incredible. But this comes from high expectations more than anything, and taking the variety into account, both in terms of genre and sound, and no productive collaboration, I hasten to add, We Are Dust has quite the pure, rounded feel to it. It's also a very important album in the current dubstep climate, bringing real flavour, colour, melody, feeling back into the mix. I mean, the fact that it's here is good enough. And despite its flaws, I think it's good enough to put Xilent amongst the best in dubstep right now. Because at the end of the day, We Are Dust has a lot going for it, and is sonically leaps ahead of its predecessor. It may be imperfect, but most albums are, and fundamentally it's a great reminder of just how full of life not only dubstep, but bass music generally can be. Now, in terms of my favourite on the album, then I think I would have to go with To Dust. Of all the genre experimentation, I think he did the future garage best. Understated, but it really delivers. Almost breathtaking and perfectly placed in the track listing. And in terms of recommendations, if you're all about that melodic, heavy bass vibe, check out Must Die, Chime, and actually everything from the Rushdown Collective. And so there we have it, my thoughts on the new album from Xilent, We Are Dust. What did you guys make of it? Do you have a favourite track from the 11? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, then be sure to give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hitting the notification bell along the way. Social media accounts are in the description box down below. For some other melodic dubstep related videos on the channel, check out the link right here. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know guys, so be sure, as always, to keep it naughty and stay safe. And I shall see all of you legends in the next one. Peace out.